part about Bruce Wayne, not Batman, focuses on his normal human side and not so much on his extraordinary double life. Which is why I wanted to highlight perhaps the best look at the character Bruce Wayne in all of DC Comics history. So come along for this ride as we observe this very exhausted man and all of his sleepy glory. Welcome back, Gothamites. If you're new here, hi. I'm London, aka History of the Batman. The Batman has been in hundreds upon hundreds of stories within his time in DC Comics. Because of this, there are many brilliant stories and arcs that by themselves wholly define a character or an aspect within the Batman's lore. So in this new video series, I'm not sure what I'm naming it yet, but it will come to me later. I will be breaking down one story, panel by panel, and explore how each helps the reader understand and appreciate these fan favorite personas and iconography of the DC multiverse. The first story that we're covering in this series is literally the reason why I wanted to start this new endeavor on this channel, and that is Doug Moench's 1985 story, Just as Night Follows Day, originally published in Batman issue 383, illustrated by Gene Colan, Alfredo Alcala, Adrian Roy, and Ben Oda. But before we spend some quality time with Bruce Wayne, why don't you subscribe to this channel and become part of the so wonderful Gothamite community? First off, let's start with the cover itself. Illustrated by Paris Cullins, Dick Giordano, and Anthony Tollin, the cover art has the banner over the masthead that says, "A Night in the Life of Batman," which is interesting considering the majority of the book is Bruce Wayne struggling during a day in his normal life. The background of this cover shows scenes of burglary, ladies of the night, a woman being attacked, and someone who oddly looks like Joe Chill, the mugger who murdered Thomas and Martha Wayne. Which strengthens my argument that I make almost every single video now that Gotham City is a dirty, trashy, horrible place to live. On to the second page, which is the splash page, which says the title, Just as Night Follows Day. Both the script and the visuals on the splash page give a brilliant setup for this simply laid out tale. The reader is told that the Batman has been patrolling Gotham for 4 nights straight, along with being more active as his normal billionaire businessman self for the last 3 days. What I love about this splash page is that Batman, unmasked, is stretching and yawning in his batsuit and promising his pillow that he will return. The biggest takeaway that I see from the splash page is the stunning juxtaposition between Bruce's Batman, who's just complaining about the lack of sleep that he gets from being so overworked, which is a very normal complaint, by the way. But behind him is a giant T-Rex, a Batmobile, and the Batcomputer, which are all very not normal things. And I honestly believe that this is a brilliant and perfect way to visualize Bruce's double life. The next page shows Bruce just anticipating being able to get some rest and go to sleep. While he wants this so bad, he has to complete other Bat-related projects. From saying it would have been so much quicker when it comes to tuning up the Batmobile if he wasn't just so exhausted, to yawning at the Batcomputer and crossing his fingers hoping he input the files incorrectly. Which I promise you, I have these issues all the time when I am sleep deprived. I cannot explain to you just in these few pages alone how much I relate to Bruce Wayne being just so tired. The best panels on this page, or maybe even in this book, is Batman in his robe saying his reward is the blessed relief of Bruce Wayne, and that he's looking forward to being completely unavailable for the rest of the day because he is asleep. This same man who lives and breathes being the extraordinary Batman of Gotham City desperately wants to be a normal man who just wants to sleep. It's all just such a struggle for Bruce. Then Alfred Pennyworth decides to destroy this ultimate dream of slumber. When Alfred reminds Bruce the painting and reconstruction workers are there at like 8 a.m. waiting to talk to Bruce. But Bruce is big sad because it is past his bedtime at 8 a.m. This panel shows Bruce's annoyance with his lack of sleep, telling Alfred the cup of coffee he's about to drink better be strong. If that isn't me every single morning of my life. Then Bruce is annoyed with the painter asking what shade of the same color, white, that he won. His responses to everyone he comes in contact with, as we'll see, are just straight up rude because he's just so exhausted and so tired and so done with everybody that he's just not being a nice person. But I don't think Bruce isn't a nice person. I just think he needs some rest. After talking with the painter and contractors, here comes the adopted son, Jason Todd, giving Bruce the fantastic news that his school bus broke down and Bruce has to take him to school since Alfred is keeping an eye out on the workers at Wayne Manor. This oh joy that Bruce says literally is merch. As we move along to the next page, we are off to Jason Todd's school. Oh joy. As Jason runs into school, Miss Collins stops Bruce and asks him to come in her office to discuss Todd's performance in class. And as you can see, Bruce is legit giddy over something else keeping him from sleeping. He legit looks like a serial killer here. He has somebody in the back of this trunk right now. As if this man isn't the one that should be putting people in Arkham Asylum, but he belongs there because he looks like he's about to straight up murder everybody, especially Miss Collins. Miss Collins, she needs to watch out because this is just not the day. But Bruce sits with Miss Collins, who complains that Jason is constantly yawning and tired in class, as Bruce yawns at the exact same time. This next panel is just priceless because Bruce casually is like, oh, it runs in the family, and Miss Collins is like, isn't he adopted? So now Bruce is really tired of this Karen out here explaining the difference between nurture and not nature, and says he'll make sure that Jason gets more rest at home so he's just solid for school, and then he straight up bounces. He doesn't have time for Miss Collins anymore. On the next page, Bruce goes back to Wayne Manor while Jason is at school, and of course there is a new surprise just waiting for Bruce. And no, it's not his bed. No, the surprise isn't that he's going to be able to take a nap. No. It's Lucius Fox reading to speak to him about Wayne Foundation work, with Bruce responding with, I give you the keys to this car I don't care about for a reason. But nevertheless, he speaks with Lucius, snaps at Alfred once again about some goddamn coffee, and then Bruce falls asleep at his desk. We are now in the late hour of 12 noon. Bruce is finally ready to take a nap. Well, that's where Bruce is. He's like, ooh, I'm ready. My pillow is calling me. I'm ready. But suddenly, the doorbell rings. It's Julia Pennyworth, Alfred Pennyworth's daughter, who recently came back into Alfred's life. And Bruce is straight up thrilled that someone else is in his goddamn house. Like, do you see how he's trying to creep away from this entire situation and go up the stairs to his bed? He hates it here today. Bruce is so dramatically draped over the banister because he's so tired and over everyone. And why is Julia here? For some BS that like. Julia has to cover a concert assigned to her by another one of Bruce's lovers, Vicky Vale, tomorrow night. and Julia wants Bruce to be her date. That's fine. But Bruce is so over all of this that when Julia asks about Bruce and Vicky's relationship, he threw a Facebook relationship status answer at her and said, "It's complicated." Bruh. And then he reluctantly decides to go to the concert with her tomorrow night. As we move along to the next page, Bruce has finally made it up the stairs by himself in his room and just lunges towards the bed like, "Oh, hello, lover." And then he starts to take the nap of kings. And then the phone rings. And who do you know? It's Vicky Vale, who says she insists on seeing Bruce. A sleep-deprived Bruce who clearly just forgot the conversation he had moments ago with Julia says, tomorrow night should totally work for us to see each other. Because Bruce doesn't care. He barely knows where he is right now. You really think he's trying to keep track of all these women that he has in his life? No! This isn't Bruce's fault, but it is perhaps the funniest part of this whole story. Because Vicky is big mad at Bruce because he keeps putting her off due to his playboy lifestyle, and frankly she's done being a side dish in Bruce's 3-course meal. What's great about that is that Bruce is so tired and disoriented. He doesn't know what time it is. He doesn't know who he's talking to. He doesn't want to see anything right now besides the inside of his eyelid before he might get about an hour of sleep in there just to have something. Literally, his whole world crashes around him. The roof has now collapsed in Bruce's room, which means Bruce cannot get this rest that he needs. There's this panel where he looks so depressed that he has to go to a concert with Julia instead of sleep. I felt that deep in my soul. Since his room is a construction zone, Bruce decides to take a relaxing bath until Alfred once again bothers Bruce, saying that Vicky Vale has pulled up in the driveway. She was like, "I need to talk to you right now." If you think about it, if Vicky Vale is pulling up in the driveway, that gives Bruce, what, an extra 20 minutes or so? I would assume the driveway is sprawling and long and luxurious, something out of an F. Scott Fitzgerald short story, but who knows. But then, while half asleep in the bath, Bruce says some incoherent string of words, and honestly, Alfred doesn't get paid enough for this. He's like, "I don't even know what to do with this." But here comes Vicky, big bad Vicky, who dares tell Bruce that another man named Bill Modell has proposed marriage to her. She said if Bruce doesn't get his stuff together, like put it all in the backpack so it's all together, all your stuff, that he'll be missing out on her and what she can provide in a marriage. I think I'm just more in awe of the confidence that you have to carry yourself and tell this man, "Oh, someone else is throwing a marriage proposal at me, and if you don't do it, then he's gonna get it and you not." And you just have to be the baddest bitch. You would think this would wake Bruce up, but it simply doesn't. He doesn't care about anyone or anything but his pillow right now. He even makes a joke about dueling with Bill, but only until he gets some rest. I'm looking. I'm just really honestly trying to find some that Bruce is giving right now, because honestly, there are zero. Vicky then doubles back after realizing Bruce doesn't care about her almost engagement and says, "Well, I didn't say yes to him yet," and dare say you might as well just date Julia. But then Vicky says, "If you don't take me out tomorrow night at 7 p.m., then they're finished." And then Bruce does his best Willy Wonka impression and says, "No, stop. Please don't." He is so not there. She wants him to care so bad. So far, we're what, 8, 9 pages into this book? He don't care about being Batman right now. All he cares about is Bruce. Him getting some rest. And good old Alfred coming in hot with some good news all day. Bruce needs to pick Jason up from school since he has to stay with the workers in the house. As Bruce gets Todd, he wants to talk with him about how Jason Todd's Robin activities affect his sleep schedule and how that's not good for anyone. But it's funny because Bruce is sleep deprived because he's Batman and it's affecting his normal life. Anyway, but as Bruce says this, he literally almost totals the car. Bruce and Jason finally arrive back at the manor, and Bruce says Jason is taking the night off of crime fighting and Batman will do it all by himself because he would rather face the Joker than his teacher again. He literally equated Miss Collins to the Clown Prince of Crime. Now, mind you, we are about like a few years away from Jason actually being murdered by the Joker, someone that Bruce right now is claiming is better than Miss Collins in Jim Starlin's Death of the Family. These choice words though. As the tired dynamic duo enter the house, Alfred has another wonderful surprise for both of them. A woman named Amanda who is Jason's past caseworker until Bruce legally adopted him. Because of this, an uninvited Amanda says for the next 6 months, as protocol goes, she has to check in to see how everything's going and if Jason is fine living with Bruce. But this first visit, the one today, right now, will last a few hours. Those sentences by themselves literally took Bruce out. What I love is that he's like leaning on the table because there's just so much misery in his soul that he has to do something else besides go to sleep. So 5 hours later, the caseworker not only leaves, but gives Bruce some advice about maybe getting some more rest. Then, what do you know? The bat signal lights up in the now night sky. We started this book at what, 8 a.m.? Bruce has gone the entire day and hasn't rested. And now the bat signal's up. So guess what? We gotta change clothes. Suddenly, Alfred watches the news and Gotham's version of a 7-Eleven is being held up by an armed robber with potential hostages. And Alfred's like, this looks like a job for Batman. But before you know it, on the next page, Bruce is in the bat suit running to the newly fixed Batmobile with all of the energy in the world. Bruce has the energy to be Batman, but does not have the energy to take his child to school, to talk with his child's teacher about his performance in said school, has no energy to deal with his actual day job, no energy to talk with contractors. He even has 0 energy to talk with the caseworker about the child he just adopted, who is going to nightly wars with him in Gotham City. No, we don't have the energy for all of those things. No, it's the Batman that literally revives his entire existence when he actually has been a zombie all day long. The Batman arrives at the 7-Eleven/24-hour grocery store unbeknownst to the GCPD, and this cop named Eddie thought he could sneak in and catch the armed robber off guard, which is just straight up dumb. Officer Eddie enters the grocery store and is about to be taken out by the armed robber until Batman literally says, "Night, night," and knocks the dude out. As the bat signal is still shining, Batman asks the officers if they called it in, that it was taken care of before he got there. And the cops said, well, yeah, why wouldn't we? Deadass Batman looks them into the windows of their soul and is like, why did y'all light up that signal then if you could handle it on your own? Bruce is running on negative 10 hours of sleep right now and is through and done with everybody. Even if he did get a new rush of energy by putting on the bat suit and going out and being the vigilante of Gotham that he loves to be, he still does not have time for the foolishness that surrounds him. And that is the energy that I love for Batman to have, that he doesn't have time for the foolishness. Although Bruce is very, very tired, he did have a correct feeling about why the bat signal would be shining over just a 7-Eleven getting robbed. Commissioner Gordon and Detective Bullock tell Batman that in the last 8 nights, a man that the GCPD can't stop has been sexually assaulting women in the same park, and they know that he will strike again tonight. Of course, Batman's on the case, but not before dragging Bullock's clumsiness, because that's the Batman we are right now. The page then goes to the current scene at the park where 2 undercover cops are patrolling the area and are trying to make sure a woman who is walking around a park at night where 8 women have already been raped over the last week doesn't become the next victim. And even though in like 2 seconds this clarification that I am about to make will not matter, I am going to add, just to cover all of my bases, that I would never victim blame, nor say that it would be this woman's fault if she was assaulted by anybody due to the fact that she is a woman walking in a park. But that is literally what the undercover cops were saying. So I am just repeating what they said in the book. But like I said, that whole thing doesn't matter because, surprise, the woman is actually the rapist in heels and a wig and pulls out a gun to shoot at the Batman. And then the Batman realizes that the assaulter dresses up as a victim so he can lure in unsuspecting women. Batman swiftly knocks the assaulter out, even saying this is like a bad dream. I appreciate lines such as this. Earlier he said something similar about, oh, I'm just dreaming, I guess. And especially since all Batman right now wants to do is dream and to rest and to sleep, these subtle motifs throughout the book just make the story even better than it already is. But no matter how he's physically feeling, the Batman is glad that the women of Gotham don't have to worry about this park rapist anymore, since he is now apprehended. On the next page, Batsy's work is of course never done. As the Gothamites sleep, a man tries to break into someone's house, and who stops him? Why, the Caped Crusader, of course. And Batman knocks him out before he can invade and rob an innocent family. The best line on this page, however, is Batman saying he's knocked out 3 criminals tonight and he's jealous they're at least getting sleep because he's not. At this point, you just wish and hope and have your fingers crossed that this man could get a nap in somewhere at some point. But let me tell you, it's just not looking good. Then Batman has to deal with a potential arsonist and knocks him out, once again mulling over them being in dreamland and why he can't enjoy some rest himself. This next page that we're about to discuss is top 3 best in Batman issue 383. While most of the page is a montage showcasing Batman beating up more thugs one by one throughout the night, the script starts with addressing that while the persona of Bruce Wayne slumbers within the psyche of his tireless alter ego. This line, I believe, is very, very important in understanding the character of Bruce Wayne. Bruce Wayne is the mask, not Batman. Both Bruce and Batman can really be seen as 2 entities. See that even in something as simple as a normal man just desperately wanting to get some sleep. Being Batman rejuvenates him no matter what he's going through and is tireless. Even though Batman is human too, so he's just telling himself that he's tireless. Basically, the mantle can't stop even if the body is unwilling to keep going. Is this healthy? Of course not. But is anything healthy about Batman? Of course not. But rejoice! The dawn is here, which is the equivalent of Fred Flintstone hearing the off-duty horn saying yabba dabba doo because finally the sun is up. But since Gotham is a trash city that never sleeps, there's another robbery in progress right in front of a very tired Dark Knight. The next page shows a man sticking up a Gothamite, and before he harms him, Batman swings into action and knocks that dude right in his face. But what's great is that he asks Batman, "Don't you ever sleep?" And Bruce is just like, lols. I don't have even time for that foolish question, and just grapples away. Now we have made it to the very last page, and the real question is Batman gonna sleep? The last page shows a Gotham City cop run up to the man Batman saved and asked if he was okay, which is confirmed, but of course Batman has already left the area, and the cop can't thank him for his service. The very last panel of the issue mimics lines from the nursery rhyme Rockabye Baby, as Batman is seen fast asleep atop a gargoyle as the sun rises, claiming that he will sleep there for a full 24 hours, then go home and go to bed. Especially since Bruce doesn't have any plans tomorrow night, right? Now that we have gone through the entirety of Doug Moench's Just As Night Follows Day, here are the reasons why this story is the absolute story to define the DC character of Bruce Wayne. When you read Batman comics, the Batman mantle, the Batman character himself, is the focus. This is why you read these stories, because of the cowled vigilante. However, the story turns that typical format, giving Batman something to solve and him going out in his best bat suit with his best gadgets and his best Batmobile and protecting Gotham, and puts much of Bruce Wayne under the microscope. Even when he's in the Batman guise, Bruce Wayne is even called a persona, which alludes to how much Bruce is the mask and Batman is the true identity of this man. Because the format of this tale does focus on Bruce Wayne, we do see a typical day in his life when he's not out patrolling Gotham, and everything is just normal as hell. Like, all of the things that kept him from sleeping are normal things that you and I could go through on any day. The biggest thing that I think everybody at some point in their life can relate to with Bruce Wayne in this story is that he has a lack of sleep. Now, sure, is his case way more dramatic than your typical insomnia? Of course. I know just from my personal self, when you don't get enough sleep, you can become really cranky. You are not your normal everyday self when you are sleep deprived. All in all, Just As Night Follows Day is a mid-1980s gem that gives us a look at the consistent tussle that Bruce has with his dual identity. And more importantly, it presents a perfect balance of an ordinary man and his extraordinary hobbies, making it the best story to read if you want to try to understand the persona of DC's Bruce Wayne. Thank you guys so much for watching this video about a deep dive into the ultimate and perfect Bruce Wayne story in DC Comics. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a bat thumbs up. As always, all of my social media is linked in the description below, including Instagram at History of the Batman, so why don't you go to follow and become a Gothamite. Check out the rest of my Batman videos on this channel, and of course, please subscribe so you can become a part of this Batman community. It would mean so much to me. Thank you guys so much for watching once again, and we will have much more History of the Batman soon, right here on YouTube. Remember, Gothamites, all about peace, love, and Batman. Bye.